Welcome to another story made by Oracle One. The warm glow of the nursery nightlight bathed the room in soft hues of amber. The gentle hum of the baby monitor was the only sound breaking the silence in Holly's spacious suburban home. It was 2:47 a.m., and her world, which only moments ago had been filled with the peaceful rhythm of her infant daughter's breathing, was about to unravel utterly. Holly lay awake in bed, the exhaustion from months of sleepless nights weighing heavily upon her. Parenthood, with all its beauty and terror, had consumed her, yet this night felt different from the rest. Something sinister seeped into the corners of her mind, prying on the edges of her senses. Because when she reached over to check the baby monitor, the screen revealed something she could never have prepared for. There, in the nursery, held tightly in a man's arms, was her infant daughter. Only no one was supposed to be at home. She sat up abruptly, breath caught halfway between disbelief and panic. The man's face was obscured partly by shadows, but she could make out the dark, matted hair that fell over a gaunt, pale face. His eyes were sunken, hauntingly hollow, glowing faintly with a sickly yellow light in the dim glow of the nursery. He looked like a walking nightmare. Fear turned her blood cold as instinct screamed at her to run to the nursery. But the rational side of her mind faltered, asking itself, how? She was alone. Her husband was on a business trip 3 states away. The babysitter had cancelled last minute. Did someone break into the house? Was this some nightmare brought to life? Her finger trembled over the monitor's mute button, but instead of silence, the faintest sound struck her ears, a slow, discordant lullaby sung quietly by the man, almost as if coaxing the baby to sleep. The melody was haunting, chilling in its hollow cadence. Holly grabbed her phone and softly called out from the bedroom, "Hello? Is someone there?" No answer. She threw the covers aside and slipped on her slippers, creeping down the hallway to the nursery door. Her hands trembled so hard she had to grip the doorknob to steady herself. The door creaked open with a groan. Her eyes adjusted quickly to the shadows. The crib lay empty. No man, no baby. Holly's heart pounded wildly. She looked around frantically, but everything appeared in place. The room was quiet and still, the baby monitor silent. Had she imagined the man? Hallucinated in her exhaustion? Suddenly a giggle echoed softly from the hallway. Holly spun around to see the small figure of her daughter toddling down the corridor toward her, glowing in innocence with a radiant smile that should have wiped away her fears instantly. But her relief was swiftly smothered by creeping unease. The baby wasn't supposed to be awake yet. She was barely old enough to crawl, let alone walk. And the warmth radiating from the girl's skin felt wrong, too cold, too unearthly. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Holly asked, her voice trembling. The baby turned her head toward her and smiled the same eerie grin the man had worn on the monitor. Though her lips curved cutely, her eyes were hollow black pits, unfathomable and chilling. Holly stumbled backward, knocking into a nearby wall as the cold realization set in. The entity on the monitor had somehow been inside the house. Somehow, that thing had taken her daughter, or what once was her daughter. Her mind raced to piece together the impossible. She forced herself to remember every sound, every shadow, every twitch from the baby monitor just moments ago. The lullaby, the empty crib, the man's bright, unsettling gaze, the unnatural giggle. A cold shiver ran down her spine as her blurred vision refocused on the creeping change in the child she had always cherished. Behind the baby's smile, something monstrous was lurking. Holly stumbled backward again, searching for the nursery door. She slammed it shut, locking it briskly. Frantically, she dialed her husband on the phone, but the line was dead silent. No ring, no response. Even the cellular signal seemed to wane. The monstrous presence had severed her link to the outside world. The baby monitor flickered violently, plunging her into moments of total static, and then twisted images. The man again, crawling slowly across the floor, inches away from the baby crib. This time, however, he looked even more ethereal, almost translucent, flickering in and out of sight. Holly pressed every button on the monitor, desperate to regain a clear image, but the house felt suffocating, imprisoning her in a waking nightmare. Suddenly, a sharp, guttural whisper echoed from the speaker. "Your child belongs to us." Terror overwhelmed Holly. She crushed the monitor in her hands as if shattering it might break the spell. But the whispers followed her. They rose from the shadows themselves, echoing down the hallways, silently forcing an unnatural stillness upon her home. Earlier memories clawed at her. The strange cold spot near the back door, the faint shadows flickering in the corners of the nursery, the little black crow she'd watched perched outside the window for 3 days straight before her daughter was born. She realized now that the intrusion was not random. It was old, ancient. This house had held secrets long before she and her husband moved in. Her thoughts spiraled, recalling old neighbors' vague warnings about the property's dark history. Whispers that children had vanished from this house decades ago, never found again. Others spoke of an entity, an old guardian or a cruel prisoner, who demanded the lives of innocents for its own dark appetite. It dawned on Holly then, the chilling truth. Something from the house's past had used the baby monitor to breach the veil between their worlds. That man, the thing, had not just entered the room. He had possessed her child's body, or perhaps stolen her soul entirely. She banged on the door desperately. "Baby, come to mommy. It's okay." But the giggle returned, hollow, inhuman, and the baby's voice broke through, but not with the clear, sweet pitch of a child. Instead, it was a deep, eerie timbre layered beneath the infantile tones. "You'll never have her." The door's locks clicked, freeing the latch slowly, as if the room itself resisted her touch, suffocating her in its malice. Pushing with all her remaining strength, Holly burst inside. The nursery was drenched in unnatural darkness, the nightlight extinguished. In its place was that man. No longer did he hold the baby, the crib sat empty and crooked in the corner. But the figure in front of her was towering, impossibly thin, his limbs bending at angles that defied nature. His hollow eyes burned with an unnatural fire, but the most horrifying sight was still held in his hands. Her daughter's face, no longer innocent or alive, it was locked in a permanent, macabre smile, mimicking the entity's own twisted expression. Panic nipped at Holly's sanity, her muscles frozen in terror as the room seemed to breathe with the creature's slow, corrupted life. "You want your child back?" His voice hissed like dry leaves in wind. "I only wore her mask to deceive you." The figure laughed, a sound like breaking glass, and suddenly vanished into swirling shadow, releasing the baby's body which crumpled to the floor. Holly caught her daughter instantly, holding her close as the infant's faint heartbeat threatened to cease. But the child's eyes were now empty, the dismal void of what she was not anymore. Holly's tears dripped onto the baby's pale face, and she sobbed, "Please, come back to me." With a snap, the room erupted into harsh white light, the nightlight blazed to life again, and the walls, once dark and shadowed, looked normal, cheerily decorated with childhood stencils. But nothing was normal. Holly clutched her baby, now lifeless and cold. No entity lurked visibly in the room, and the baby monitor was silent and still once more. Desperation clawed at her soul as she screamed into the emptiness, "What have you done to my baby? What are you?" Then, coming through the monitor, soft and low, was the chilling whisper once more. "She never was yours." The house fell silent for a moment before the screens flickered again, revealing a scene frozen in time. The baby's room, years ago. A man, much like the figure Holly saw today, holding another child in its arms. A mother watching from the doorway, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. And then the scene changed, flickering to the present. Holly herself, watching from the doorway, holding a baby with hollow eyes and an impossible smile. The entity had won. Days later, the police found the house empty. No sign of Holly or her baby. Just the baby monitor sitting innocently on the nursery dresser, its screen black. They noted the residence's history. A trail of lost children, vanished mothers, and unsolved mysteries tangled through generations. Neighbors whispered that if you listened closely on a quiet night, you might hear a lullaby, sung by a voice not quite belonging to the living, echoing from within the walls. And on some rare nights, the baby monitor flickers to life on its own, showing a pale man holding a child who is not a child at all. For more stories, like and subscribe.